All right. I think we're good. Hey, welcome to History Chats this afternoon. Um, get the screen transition. I'm just gonna throw it to Gary, and he'll take it away about the today's topic.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome this afternoon. In the city of Wausau, soon coming up in early September, every year for many years, the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum has presented Birds and Art. This year, of course, it's coming the weekend after Labor Day. But I thought as we approach Birds and Art this year, we thought we would just take a little bit of a look at their early years of the Woodson Art Museum, as well as what we now know as Birds and Art. The Birds and Art was a event in Wausau since 1976. It was in that year that the museum launched an incredible career of providing art, and more specifically wild and bird art, to Wausau, Marathon County, and beyond. The art museum did not just happen, but the people involved with the founding of the art museum started planning for this many years prior. And I want to tell a little bit of that story, some of the people involved, and what they did 50 years ago is turning into an incredible history of the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum and their prize exhibit every year, Birds and Art. So the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum here in the city of Wausau, and it's, in case you need directions, in case you're seeing this from afar, it's on the corner of 12th Street and Franklin Street on the east side of Wausau. So it sort of symbolic, really, of the museum putting Wausau on the map, and Birds and Art putting Wausau on the map. But in case you're coming into the city, it's on the corner of 12th and Franklin Streets in Wausau. So here we are, the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum. Well, so what is this about, Leigh Yawkey Woodson? Well, let's start with Leigh Yawkey Woodson. The museum took this name many years ago, and let's talk about that. Again, the Birds and Art 2023 at the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum, beginning September the 9th, running through November. I hope this instills you a little bit to come and see what they have here in Wausau. So we're going to start out with Leigh Yawkey Woodson. Leigh Yawkey Woodson, well, let me start over here, because we'll start with Leigh Yawkey and her husband, A.P. Woodson. They were married in 1911, lived in Wausau for many years. So that's how we're starting to get the name. But we really should go back to Leigh's parents, Cyrus Carpenter Yawkey and Alice Maud Richardson. They, of course, lived in the house across the street from where we are talking at 403 McIndoe Street. But again, Cyrus and Alice had one daughter, Alice Leigh, and she married A.P. Woodson in 1911. This is this is Leigh Yawkey Woodson in her garden. She was very comfortable in her garden, and you will see the flowers and you see the nature. A big part of her being was with nature, and we see that in her love of birds that we'll talk about today. This picture was taken earlier, not in conjunction with the Woodson Art Museum. The Woodson Art Museum came in 1976. This was an earlier picture, but I show this picture with Leigh Yawkey Woodson with her three daughters, Alice Forrester, Nancy Spire, and Margaret Fisher, the three daughters that came to form after Leigh Yawkey Woodson's death to form the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum. But these were the three daughters that were manifested in creating the art museum in the memory of their mother. So we begin with the house that became the Woodson Art Museum on 12th Street in Wausau. This was the house of John and Alice Forrester. In 1972, they donated. They were already starting to prepare themselves for this art museum because in that year they donated their house on 12th Street to become an art museum. So the planning was already instilled in the three daughters to do this. This English Tudor style house, Cotswold house, designed house, again up on 12th Street in Wausau. It was the home of Ben Alexander at one time, and also Wesley Stefke, and then the Forrestys eventually moved into this house much later, I believe into the 1950s. But eventually, the story of the art museum started to develop. In 1975, the ground was broken for the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum addition. There was an addition to the original house, and of course, if you go to the art museum today, you can see many additions to the art museum. But this was the first addition for their main gallery back in 1976. And again, an article in the Wausau paper describing the groundbreaking, what was intent with regard to the daughters, with regard to creating this art museum, and perhaps and at this point, speaking to the basic collection of the museum will be the Dorothy Doty series of English and American birds collected by Mrs. Woodson, one of the few such complete collections. It is hoped to bring traveling art collections to the museum. Their wishes, again, this was in 75, getting ready for the magic opening in 1976. So they made reference in that article to the Dorothy Doty birds, English designer of fine ceramic birds, and Mrs. Woodson, of course, the person who made it one of her life goals was to develop the complete collection. So we have the birds, the Doty birds, as part of the Woodson Art Museum today, and this was the major formation of the collection that was to be developed through the years. But this collection came to the Woodson Art Museum for display in 1976. The other person really that was a key part of the 1976 opening was Owen Grommy, a master wildlife artist, born in 1896, died in 1991, an incredible wildlife artist. And if you see his art, they're always associated with birds. He was the major exhibit in 1976 with the opening of the exhibit, opening of the museum in 76. His Birds of the Lakes, Field, and Forest was the major exhibit in the opening in 1976. Again, a small sample of Owen Grommy's work, a lot of wildlife, mostly birds. So you can see the emphasis at this time in day one of the emphasis on birds, the Woodson, the Doty birds, and the Owen Grommy birds and wildlife, a key part of developing the theme that was going to be carrying on at the Woodson Art Museum for the rest of their continuing life. I just want to make mention that Owen Grommy, a great artist, published several books. One of those books, Birds of Wisconsin, an incredible artist. And again, coming back to 1976, his exhibit was the major part of that opening in 1976. This is just a little bit of a biography of Owen Grommy, an enduring legacy. Back in 2014, the Woodson Art Museum featured an extensive exhibit of Owen Grommy's work, and this sort of speaks to that museum collection at that time. But coming back to 1976 with the opening of the Yawkey Woodson Art Museum, it was an incredible event for the city, and was, it was just. Let me read what was reported in the Wausau paper. The first exhibit in the new museum, which now open to the public, includes the work of 23 of the country's top wildlife artists. It represents the first time such comprehensive exhibit of their work has been organized in a single museum. Dr. Roger Torrey Peterson, a noted artist, the Dean of Bird Painters, commented, "This is a very, very important exhibit by the finest bird painters in the country today. Most of the top ones are represented here, and I think it is grand." It just goes to show you that this was a really special time in the history of art in the city in 1976 to be able to pull off this exhibit. Ben Lewis, also writing in the Wausau paper, said, "If the birds could sing, the ducks quack, the loons yodel, and the grouse drum, it would be a fitting tribute to the opening of the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum in Wausau Saturday. The birds will be there when the art museum located at 12th and Franklin opens to the public." So again, it was in 1976, the beginning of almost 50 years of the Woodson Art Museum's special attachment to birds and wildlife. And you can see that through their almost 50 years of continuing exhibits. And if you go there at the beginning of their exhibit in early September, you'll see that continuing evidence of greatness that the Woodson Art Museum brings to Wausau, and it brings to the whole art area of art history in the city, beginning in 1976, and it is put Wausau on the map. It's a great adventure. Their continual growth up on 12th Street is something to behold, and please take a look and see what they have for you in store today. But again, this started almost 50 years ago with the Woodson daughters and the Doty birds, Owen Grommy, and a lot of other wildlife and bird painters coming into the city to start what is an incredible history in the city of Wausau. So with that, I'll turn it back to Ben.
Yeah, all right. So there you go. Would encourage you to take a look at again, I'll put a link in the description here, but of course the Yawkey Woodson Art Museum has their own great website with a lot more information too about stuff coming up. So feel free to take a look at that. I also thought I'd maybe explain just as a note here, the thumbnail, I guess, for the video here. I guess it's just to give credit here. I just thought it was a very interesting approach to. There we go. This is from one of the, I think, 1979, their pamphlet, booklet explaining the thing. And so this was one of the actual things, bird art. So I guess the birds in art branding hadn't quite come into being yet. Anyway, just want to give credit to them for the author or the creator for that. I guess I'll just sum that up with, as Gary said, there's a lot of art coming up in the next couple weeks here in September. We're going to be continuing the theme with next week, which will be looking at the Festival of the Arts, which is another big thing. And this, of course, was, I don't know if this is the first year, but this is an image here from the first or second, third maybe year, when it was actually held on the lawn of the Yawkey Woodson, got the Yawkey Woodson Art Museum stuck in my head. This is not an art museum. This is the Historical Society, back when it was the Yawkey Museum, the History Museum. So yeah, interesting story there, and we'll be happy to share that with you next week with some more history. And I think for now, we'll just call it there. Thanks for watching. Hopefully, again, get out there and see some art in the next couple weeks, as there is some good stuff happening. And we'll hopefully see you next time for some more history next week. All right.